Bitcoin Discovery Center. And, Tobias, to get it kicked off, I'd love to just have you give a little background about yourself and what you guys are building at the Bitcoin Discovery Center.
Yeah. Well, right here it says Bitcoin Mining Museum, and that's how it all started about half a decade ago. I got in the space going on 9 years now, and about 5-6 years ago, we went through one of those big downturns where people kind of left their miners at my shop, didn't want them back anymore because they were useless or worthless. So I started collecting different models without even knowing it until, one weekend I'm chilling in my shop and look up on the shelves and I just see all these different models. And I start cleaning them up and organizing them in chronological order, and started going on eBay to buy more, and I just started doing my own personal collection. I was motivated by some of the OGs. There are OGs in the space that have their own private collection as well, and they were showing off like some photos to me and stuff, like, check out what I got, and I'm like, well, look what I got, and we're kind of going back and forth. And he was like, well, I got an extra one of this, you want it? And I'm like, I got an extra one of this, you want it? So it's like trading cards, but Bitcoin miners in a way. Then I started talking to OGs more often, different ones, reaching out and saying, hey, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for this. And it got to the point where I had maybe 30, 40 machines. Then I was like, man, this is, if you think that if Bitcoin is supposed to be the biggest thing since sliced bread or in our lifetime, how come nobody's preserving the history? Because I went online and I looked for a Bitcoin museum to actually donate my miners to, and there was nothing out there. Like, I was blown away that like nobody's bothering to preserve the history of Bitcoin. Now I'm assuming that maybe it's for various reasons. One of them, which was told to me, is that I'm too early to even think about a museum, because Bitcoin is still too early for the world. And the fact that Bitcoin isn't something you cannot touch and something you cannot see, so nobody thinks about preserving anything because you cannot touch or see Bitcoin. So I'm like, well, wait a second. Yes, you can, because miners, they're the backbone of Bitcoin. Without miners, that's the DNA of the Bitcoin blockchain. And I would say even nodes. Nodes are involved in that aspect too. So I started collecting miners over the years, and I got to roughly, I think, 70 something by the time Mining Disrupt reached out to me and said, hey, we love what you're doing, and we would love to showcase your museum. So instead of me doing like other people where I have to pay a booth to show stuff, I'm not selling anything. So it's like I'm not making any money because I'm not there to sell historic pieces. So they actually paid me to come out because I attract people to the conference with the museum. So they covered my expenses. I did it for free, but they covered all of my expenses to come out for that first time around. And in that conference, OGs came through and seen it and were blown away by it. And then next thing you know, people came to me and said, hey, man, I got this in my shed. I got this in my attic. I got this in my grandma's house and in whatever state their grandma lives in. So it's like I started to communicate and connect to OGs from the early days to where I'm now getting more historic miners. And then I got to hit the 100 mark. And then other conferences started to hit me up, like the Bitcoin conference, the big one. I brought my museum out to them. And that was actually one of the first times, besides Mining Disrupt, where we started to get paid on top of expenses being covered. So that way I at least have some overhead coming in to recycle some of those funds to buy more miners for the museum and collect more. Then I through this process, I'm running into people at conferences that are historians in their own right, that love the history of Bitcoin, and they're like, man, I love what you're doing. I want to be a part of this. So we have like Parker, and we have Lance is no longer with us, but he was with us for many years, and Tyler up in Canada. Like, Tyler found stuff for me in places that I didn't even know to look, and he drove in Canada 3 hours to meet somebody to go get one miner, and then showed me the photo of this miner that I don't have in the trunk of his car in Canada. And I'm like, man, this guy's gung-ho. He's motivated. Like, I got to have him on my team. So I started to build a team of people that actually love what I'm doing because they love what we're doing as a whole in preserving history. Um, so from there forward, it got to bigger conferences. We started getting paid a little more for these conferences because it got to the point where I had to pay, like, I had to invest about 30 grand into a trailer, dedicated trailer for the museum with foam padding and customized shelves in it because my Suburban couldn't handle carrying the museum around anymore. It grew to that size. So now we're at 136 different Bitcoin mining machines. So it's kind of mind blowing. Like 136 to, I can cover a 1,500 square foot space in the conference now on my own with just my exhibit.
It's awesome.
So yeah, so that led into. Sorry, I'm not even letting you get any questions in here, huh? I'm just
No, it's
blah,
great.
blah.
I appreciate the backstory, man. It's so
Yeah,
cool.
you ain't got to do nothing.
Exactly, making my job easy.
So yeah, so then from there, what happened was that most of the common miners and most of the mid-level miners and even some of the rare miners are now collected, but now it's getting harder and harder to find miners because now we're getting to the level of searching for miners to where we get to the extreme ultra rare stuff, to the super small batches, to the miners that got thrown in the trash for some miner because they sucked and people didn't like them, so there's not many left, to even the historic phases, because we started with Satoshi era mining on laptops and PCs, and there's so CPU mining. Then we went from CPU to GPU, from GPU to FPGA, and FPGA was only like 10 months, and it's like a blimp in the history of Bitcoin mining until ASICs just took over in January 2013. So it took us 4 years. It took me 4 years to find the world's first dedicated miner called the Avalon 1. And now we have two of them because there's two different colors. I got silver and black, and we're the only ones in the world that have both colors. And I got with manufacturing founders. I started to search and hunt down the founders from back in the day, where I was successful of finding probably 7 or 8 different ones, and interviewed some of them anonymously, including OGs. But through these anonymous interviews of just picking their brain from the early days of stuff that you cannot Google, or AI doesn't even know some of the stuff that I've learned, uh, through that process, it's got more and more difficult and more important to preserve the history of Bitcoin mining. Because one moment was where I drove with the trailer to the conference in Miami, and we hit a big pothole, and the trailer bounced, the leaf spring broke, and miners fell off the shelf, and one of the miners broke. Luckily, it was one that I can replace. But because of me finding these founders and building relationships, I've actually received some prototype miners. So that's irreplaceable. One for one stuff. Like I have the world's first prototype for the BitAxe. So from all these BitAxes out in the world now, from being open source, I literally have the first one that was ever made. So it's like, that's sick, having an FPGA, which I brought an example for you.
I was actually going to ask because I'm pretty well versed in the space, and I knew the process from CPU to GPU to ASIC, but I didn't realize there was an FPGA. I don't even know what that stands for, but I'm glad you brought it up because I'd love to learn more about that. Wow, that is so cool.
So that's the data card for it.
Ultra rare
2012,
historic.
before ASICs came out, and this is what it looks like. And each red heatsink has a chip under it, and each chip does only 250 mega hash. Not even, so this whole thing is just 1 gigahash.
Wow.
And this was mining like 50 Bitcoin blocks a day on average.
So cool, man.
And back then, when this was mining, well, no, this was roughly, the first pool came out from Luke Dash Jr. in 2011, which is Ocean now. And what's crazy is that I hunted the founder down for this, and he had 2 of them. One's the prototype that he didn't want to give up, but then they had a second one, which was this one. and he sold it to me for an undisclosed amount of Bitcoin. And I was like tripping, like, why is he even charging me Bitcoin if you're that early? Because he showed me his transaction account from like a screenshot of 1,200 a Bitcoin, 800 Bitcoin, 2,250 Bitcoin, like hundreds and thousands of Bitcoin in and out of the account. Because he made 900 of these and sold them into the U.S. They're
Wow.
called Quad Miner,
That's
and it's
awesome.
made by BTCFPGA.com. And most of them are gone, thrown away. So this, like, is because of the scarcity of it, and based off the value of the Avalon One's roughly $100,000 in value today. I'm guessing this is maybe 50 grand, give or take, for this little thing. Uh, it's kind of like having Steve Jobs' Apple Macintosh computer from his garage in 1976, but for Bitcoin. And those go for what, $1.2 million nowadays in auction?
Sure, an insane amount of money, and I imagine your mining collection is going to just be worth more and more over the years. But on top
Yes,
of just
yes.
being
It's
worth.
right now the valuation. I actually sold a mini version of my museum, but I had extras. I sold spares. I needed to bring some income coming in to move forward with stuff. So, an oil company, there's somebody in the oil space, on company space, that was interested, and I had a six-figure sale, and based off of that information, we were able to do an assessment of my museum, of the valuation of my museum. So it's roughly 2.2 million right now for the valuation of my museum, give or take. But what happened off of that trailer incident is that it got me thinking, what is if I get T-boned at an intersection? What is if I flip this trailer and all of these miners break, and like half a decade of work is gone?
Mm,
So it's time for a brick and mortar. So that started to get my wheels turning about figuring out a home for these. So then I started to just talk to people, and just start. I believe in manifestation. You speak things into existence and eventually it'll happen. Um, so I started to speak on it, but there was many moments where I got rejected from here, then rejected from here, and ignored from here, and bumped out from here, and I started to get like lose my motivation to kind of continue, until literally it's these conferences where young teenage kids will come up like with their mom, ask like legit questions about how can they heat their home in their mom's cabin in Virginia for the winter with miners, or I want to mine in my bedroom with a bit axe, or it's like like I'm seeing the young generation show interest at these events, and that's what kind of kept me alive. It's like, all right, well, I'm this deep in, I can't give up. So at the last conference in Dallas, I had like the best display I've ever had. This time we used more LED lighting, make it look more, modern, since many people nowadays they get their dopamine off of pretty things, flashy things, things moving all the time. Everything has to be fast, fast, fast. So I was trying to give more of a modern vibe to the exhibit this time, and from that I got introduced to a guy named James who owns the largest repair center in America, called ACS, out of Dallas. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
mm,
So ACS is this is kind of a cool 360 story. But ACS is owned two owners. Second owner is a old friend named Will, and Will is somebody that I actually helped get into the mining space 8 years ago. Like I taught him a little bit about mining, and he got in, and he just went full throttle for 8 years and did his own thing, to where he's now part owner of this multi-million-dollar repair center that's 100,000 square feet huge, with like 40 technicians walking around and tens of thousands of miners being repaired a month, in and out, being refurbished. And it was mind-blowing to see their operation. So they took me on this private tour on during one of the lunch breaks over there, and got to meet the James, the owner. And Will, basically, he's in another state, but Will was like talking to James and saying, "Hey, man, the Coin Dad is looking for a home for his miners, and they have an extra 30,000 square foot facility connected to this repair center in the storefront area, facing the road." And when they took me to this tour, they took me through these double doors into this empty, huge 30,000 square foot space. And they're like, we discussed about the idea of maybe doing something with you and your museum in here. What do you think? And I'm like blown away. Like, sure, I've been trying to find a place. And, nobody's been helping or offering anything up so far. So I was blown away at that. And I go back to the conference, and excuse me. And another lady comes walking through who I've seen before. And I don't know, have you ever heard of the Texas Blockchain Council?
I have, yeah.
Texas,
that's like,
with
I've seen Bitcoin Magazine posts about that, I
Lee
believe.
Bratcher is the owner of it. So she was friends with this crew, or knew this crew, and she seen my museum a few years ago when I just had two 8-foot tables and it was small. Now I got this whole 1,000 square foot space filled up at this conference with all this cool looking stuff, and I gave her a private tour of everything, and I guess she was blown away by it to the point where she sat down and wrote an email to Lee from the Texas Blockchain Council, because I also told her I'm trying to figure out if there's anybody in Texas that has any companies that might be associated with the nonprofit or anything, because to fill up a 30,000 square foot space, and I don't have the money to do that, I would need help from the Bitcoin community to build this out. So my idea started shifting towards nonprofit status. And I responded to the email that she sent with the intro to Lee, and I told Lee, I would love to meet him before I go back home to North Carolina the next day. And he's like, well, I'm out of town. I won't be back till late tonight. Let's talk in a few weeks. And I stood my ground, sort of say, and I was like, no, please give me all I need is just a moment of your time on my way out. So he seen, that I was dedicated to wanting to see him as soon as possible. So he literally gave me the next day, 9 a.m., first thing before all of his video calls and conferences started, gave me 15 minutes in the conference room. So I got invited to all these events that night, and I turned them all down, went to bed on time, because I'm not going to miss this opportunity, So showed up on time, and in a conference room, he gave me his ear for 15 minutes. I showed him photos of the new museum and the size of it and this facility and what my ideas are. And I already had all these things in my head of how I'm going to build it out, what I'm going to do, who I'm going to collab with. He was impressed enough to where he called another guy in, and Steve Kennard, and said, hey, Steve, don't we still have that nonprofit that's really lingering and hasn't been doing much in the past year? And Steve said, yeah. And he's like, give it to Tobias. Let him take it over. That process takes 3 years on average for the IRS to even look at it and say hello, and they might reject you on it 3 years from now. And I literally, in overnight, skipped 3 years. And the Texas Blockchain Council showed love in supporting this whole thing by giving me the nonprofit status. And the definition of their nonprofit is ironically a mirror image of what I'm building with the Bitcoin Discovery Center, because they were working on trying to do something similar in the past. It just didn't work out. So it's kind of crazy how this just came about. So took a couple months, but Secretary of State of Texas finally got me as the executive director, and then James, who has the facilities, the other one, he's now a director of the nonprofit. So now we have official nonprofit. We got official bank account. We officially got Square for US dollar. Got BTC pay server behind a node, protected and running. Got some cybersecurity work done to protect everything around it. We're doing multi-sig technology between all three directors, so can't nobody steal any Bitcoin. Using cold cards and stuff. It's like we've done everything right before the announcement. So now we're transitioning from this right here, the Bitcoin Mining Museum, to this facility here. And it's called the Bitcoin Discovery Center. And that logo even was like crazy. Like I literally just said to AI what I want to build, and this is the logo that was the first logo that came up, and I fell in love with it right then and there. I didn't have to do anything else. Boom, there's a logo. And then we looked up phone numbers, right, for like an 800 number for the center. And this is a true story. There was a short list of numbers to choose from, and in there is 1-888-256. 256. 4188. What happens when you add 4188 together?
They make me do math on the spot. What is that, 14?
No.
4 plus 1.
4 plus 1 is 5 plus 16. 8 is 16. It's
Oh, I'm
crap.
sorry.
Now I'm screwed up.
Live math always.
It's 21.
20. Oh, it was 4158. You're saying? I see.
Wait a second. I gotta look my own freaking number up. Anyway,
Man,
the
that's awesome,
256.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
the Shaw 256. How awesome.
Yeah. 4 plus 1 plus 8 plus 8 is 21.
Okay,
So 21 million Bitcoin. So the last 4 digits added up is 21 million.
Yep, exactly.
Or 21.
Let the record show. I thought you said 4118, which is why
4188.
Gotcha, man. That is
Sorry
too
about
cool. No, it's all good that it adds up to 21. How amazing!
Yeah,
I mean,
that's crazy.
What an incredible story. I think your point on manifestation is a very prescient one. I completely agree. You know, the words you use do carry emotion, and if you constantly just tell yourself this is going to happen, this already exists. I mean, I think I saw something on Twitter where there was like a CIA document that was basically saying, like, Zero Hedge posted an article about it, where if you want to create something, you know, envision it, manifest it in your mind, think about it, let it go, and then just do that every single day until it comes to fruition. And obviously, you know, you have to put in the legwork. You have to be in the right opportunities, as you mentioned, waking up at 9 a.m. so you could speak to that guy. But I do think, you know, if you just keep manifesting, you keep believing, and you keep using positive words, sure enough, something like that will happen. And, you know, it's amazing that your museum's already worth that. But on top of that, just to have like a physical thing, because I know that's going to be so valuable when people look back. You know, I tweeted this out recently, and one of the things I did for both my children is create an email account for them. Just occasionally, if, you know, mama takes a photo of us, or if something happens and I want to write to them, I write an email to them, and the idea is that after, you know, 18 or so years, I'll give it to them. Now, I think maybe I should also do a physical journal, because I think there's something cool about the tangible thing. But I think just having those time capsules, so people who weren't around, like I know, you know, I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm so proud that the guy who did the first Bitcoin transaction ever, Laszlo, you know, was in Jacksonville and paid 10,000 Bitcoin for some pizzas. But, you know, a lot of that history gets lost. So things like the Book of Satoshi. I know Bitcoin Magazine, they don't have a mining museum, but they have like an art museum, which is cool. We need more mining museums.
Yeah, I've been there. Tommy runs the place. I actually donated one of the first miners to them.
Oh,
but you got your. I actually have that trading card.
No way. I saw that painting, and I wanted it for so long, man. Tommy is a fantastic artist.
Bitcoin trading cards has that's one of the cards. I'm actually huge into Bitcoin trading cards as well. I actually have, you know how this is crazy, and especially 10 years from now. But this is Michael Saylor's rookie card.
Yep.
And
wow.
I got him to sign it, and it's the first one in history ever signed by Michael Saylor.
No
and
way.
It's authenticated by PSA. And then after Ross Ulbricht got out of jail, I already pulled his 21 club card. There's only 21 of these cards in the world, and I got one. So by itself is already like a $3,000 card. But I was in the whale lounge with my wife eating breakfast, and my wife looked up, and she's like, "Hey, look, that guy looks just like Ross." And I'm like, "Oh, crap, that is him." So I went and talked to his security guard, and then the security guard helped me out because we were ex-military together. So we kind of linked up on a conversation with being in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then he introduced me to the mom, and then the mom introduced me to him. And then I sat down at their table and got to talk to him for a little bit. But there he is. He signed my card, and this one got authenticated just a few weeks ago by a PSA. So I don't even know what value to put on them, but I wouldn't take less than 20 grand.
I mean, some things
and
are
then Michael
priceless, right?
Saylor has the new S3 card that came out with his eyes. And I mean, look at that sick artwork. Or this one, when I went to the conference, I was ripping packs from S1 from the first series, and I pulled a Hal Finney, and that's a $10,000 card, Gem Mint 10, from a $50 pack.
That is so cool.
So it's like, because they take the same concept as Bitcoin, where they only print 21,000 packs a year and never make more, unlike Pokemon and everything else out there that has billions, just like, you know, the money printer. But I didn't want to veer off there. But I just,
No, no, I'm really glad you did veer off there, and I think all types of physical, tangible things. I mean, I know Bitcoin does exist as zeros and ones in computers, but I think, like you're saying, the miners, the trading cards, these physical things, or even like the cashless coins, which aren't as they don't really make them anymore, but you have open dimes. I think all those things just help people kind of get a more visceral feeling of Bitcoin. That see this network is actually an incredibly powerful thing, and it's beautiful that it's a digital thing. You can transfer value anywhere in the world, but I think these tangible artifacts will, especially for the generations coming up, just be so important for their understanding.
yeah. The Avalon one, which is behind me. No, not that one. Oh, it's in that corner. You can't really see it that much, but it's too bulky for me to bring up. But the crazy part is like how I found it. OGs knew that I was looking for one, so I used to live with my wife in a trailer, a RV, because we were building our home, and it was April Fools, or really close to April Fools, and I got a message on Telegram saying, "I have an Avalon One. You interested?" And I'm like, "Man, bullshit. This is not real." And I thought it was some OG messing with me for April Fools. And I was like, if that's real, I want you to walk around, put the miner on a chair, and walk around and do a 360 video and send it to me in the next 30 minutes. 20 minutes later, I got a file to download, and there it is. Miner sitting on the table, and this dude just walking around. I'm like, where are you? He said, in a small town in Sweden. Come to find out, this guy is a vintage Apple computer repair guy that just has a hobby with a shop at his house where he collects stuff personally. And he goes to yard sales and goes to different events for computer stuff, and found this thing for, I think it was $10 or something at a yard sale. And he didn't really know what it was, so he bought it and took it home and still couldn't figure out what it was. So he left it alone for like 5 years or something like that until he was cleaning up, found it again, and then on the internet found out it's a Bitcoin miner, and because it's old, he put in 2 words: Bitcoin Museum, and he found this website. And on there, to communicate with me, there's Telegram. He doesn't have Telegram, so he had to download Telegram with a brand new profile, and then he sent me that one message. And that's the reason why I thought it was somebody messing with me, a scammer, because like, there's no photo, there's no history, there's no information on the profile. So I was, wary of the response. So what's crazy is that he didn't know nothing about Bitcoin, and then we come to a conclusion of a price for me to buy it from him, but then shipping was also expensive, and the tariffs and all that, the customs and fees, and so I'm like, well, I can pay you this way. And then he was like, no, I can't do that because of this. And I'm like, how about this way? And he's like, no, I can't do that because, and then he was like, how about this way? And I'm like, no, I can't because of that. Like there was various issues with the regular financial system, to the point where I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just pay you in Bitcoin? And he's like, well, I don't have an account. And I looked up, and Coinbase is active in Sweden. So he downloaded Coinbase, and I walked him through the setup, and then I orange pilled him. It took like 4 days of back and forth with him, but I orange pilled this guy, and we agreed on a Bitcoin price, and he got paid within a matter of minutes. And 2 weeks later, DHL shows up with this thing in front of my door, and I was blown away. So it's like, again, just finding the world's first dedicated miner in such a way is super unique. I'm searching all over the world for this thing, and somebody that doesn't know anything about Bitcoin runs across it and then finds me. Like, what's the odds of that happening? What's the
That
odds of
is,
me orange pilling somebody I'd never met before over the freaking Telegram messages to even receive Bitcoin? So if he's still holding today, he should be happy, because that was a few years back.
well, it's beautiful
But
too that
that
Bitcoin.
that was just tying into what you just said about transactions and dealing with transactions around the world. I dealt with him from country to country in a moment where it was. I even believe it was the weekend. No banks were open. I could do anything if I wanted to with wire transfers, because you got to wait for the Fed to open up for go through the Fed and stuff. And everything was almost instantly. And he got paid and shipped it out.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, man, when you work with other Bitcoiners, and like I do some development work for some people who are not in the United States, and they pay me in Bitcoin, and it makes it so much more seamless. It's kind of a paradox in Bitcoin, and I'd like to tie this into your point about you being a veteran. Thank you for your service, by the way. But you mentioned Ross. That was one of the things you connected with his bodyguard on. And, the paradox I found with Bitcoin is that the number go up, the greed is the typical driving factor to get someone into Bitcoin. That's what motivates the vast majority of people to get into the space. But I think, too, the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, there's something to be said for it's a more honest money. I do believe in my heart that it defunds war, that it allows, value for value, cooperative transaction rather than resorting to violence. And I'd love to just hear you speak if being a veteran impacted you, getting orange pilled, or was it more so working with the miners, or maybe a combination of that stuff? But I would just love to hear your thoughts on, how your background helped you understand Bitcoin.
Well, I've been to 30 countries. I actually have a map here in my office up here with black dots from every place that I've set foot in the world. And it looks pretty impressive now that when I look at it and see all the dots, you never think about it on an individual basis. But in this way, it's like, wow, I can't believe I've been that many places. But going to like Africa and going to the Middle East, to like 5-6 different countries, and dealing with the war zones, like the Iraqi dinar, I was hyped up about buying it for super cheap when I was there. Oh, you can get 1,600 dinar for $1. So I bought like millions of dinar, because if it goes to $1, I got millions of dollars. And it just ended up being wallpaper, and toilet paper actually even lost more value from that when I bought it. And so that was a pain, a learning experience. But seeing third world countries face to face and seeing how many people are unbanked, and then places like in Kenya, Africa, and Nigeria, and Uganda, and even in South America, like right now, Venezuela and other places, Bitcoin's saving lives. Like people, we live in a first world country where to us it's hodl, DCA, invest, and wait for the future for it to go up, because it's more for retirement and stuff like that. In other countries, they don't give a crap about what happens 20 years from now, because they're trying to stay alive till tomorrow. So by them being able to exchange goat milk with sugar in the villages of Africa, because they have a Nokia cell phone, there's cell phones out there, even in the villages, that are working. So it's easier for them to transact, even though they're not a part of the financial system. Same thing in the Middle East. So that kind of helped, being around the world and seeing different countries and seeing third world countries and understanding the power of Bitcoin. And what else helped is prior to, actually it was before the military and even a short stint after I got out of the military, there was moments in my life where I was down and out. So I was actually slanging dope. I was selling drugs in Miami and in Houston. But I was the slick one. I would think outside the box. Like in Miami, for example, I used to go to the hood in Liberty City, and there was a place called the Pork and Bean Projects. I'm a big like hip hop, old school type of guy, rap music. That's what I grew up around. And I used to go to these Pork and Bean Projects, and back in the day, in the 90s, they used to have like tree logs that would block the roads all the way around, except one way in, one way out. So if a murderer or a big drug dealer tries to escape, then they can't drive out except one way, so the cops can block the whole thing off easily. So I used to go in there and get dope, and then instead of me going back to my hood where I was living and compete with all the other people doing the same thing, I found out that French Canadians from Canada love crack and smoking weed and coke. So they used to come down during the winter from Canada, from Quebec and different places, with their RVs and all that, and or stay on the beaches and the hotels. And I'm like, I was by myself. I had the whole beach to myself in Broward County, and I used to slang at a higher price because they're tourists. And I was like so slick with it. Like I used to go to the payphones, and I wouldn't do hand-to-hand transactions because I didn't want to get caught. So they would go and put money on the payphone, and then where the quarters come out, and then I would walk up and put whatever they're getting on top of the payphone and take the money and walk away. And then they come back and act like they're talking on the phone and grab whatever I had laid there. So there was never no hand-to-hand stuff. But then there was moments where I was slick with it, like in Houston, for example, where I waited for my competition to go dry. And guess what happens? Scarcity. And because I had scarcity, price went up. Because price went up, I'm making more money than everybody else because I was smart enough to hodl. So I learned hodling, scarcity, and more price go up on the streets of Houston. So when Bitcoin came out and I was struggling in 2013 and I was already married to my wife, then after the war zone, we came home and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to make money. I'm Googling online, like, how do I make money? Because I used to hit up yard sales and I would do stuff like, my wife was working, but us men, this is our home. We're supposed to take care of everything. And I felt this big of a man when, my wife's handling and holding down the weight with all the bills, and I couldn't find a job at the time because this was the Obama era. And with me having a military background, it was hard finding a job because they did the sequester during Obama. So a lot of people lost their jobs on the DOD side. So it was difficult for me. So I'm trying to make ends meet by at least helping my wife pay electric bill or get groceries by going to yard sales. And on Saturdays, I had it down to a science where Friday night, I would sit down and look up where, like, let's just say 7 yard sales Saturday morning. And then I'd look, okay, so this one starts at 7 a.m., this one at 7:30, this one at 8:30, this one at 9. And then I'd get the map and then map it out to where it's the shortest distance from one to the next. And I would line them all up and I would boom, 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 boom. By 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I'm like almost first at every single one as they're opening, getting all the good stuff. Then I bring everything home and then I'd clean it up and post it on eBay and sell it for 2, 3, 4, 5 times more the money. So from home, I was making money off of eBay through yard sales. But then that wasn't really enough. So that's when I started to search. So 2013 was the first time I heard about Bitcoin. It was $30. And when I read a little bit about it, I blew it off as internet money for geeks. That's the first thing that came to my mind. Internet monopoly money for geeks. And then the second time, I blew it off again, and everything happens in threes for the most part. Third time, I'm like, I see the documentary with Charlie Shrem called Banking on Bitcoin.
Yes, that was also the first documentary I watched. What an excellent documentary. It's on YouTube for free. Highly recommend. If someone hasn't seen it, stop listening to this and go search it because it is excellent.
I like that. That's my favorite one. Then there's also God Bless Bitcoin. I like that one as well. That one is more of today's era. The other one I think was 2014. So Charlie Shrem, and seeing his story was, he was basically like my first Bitcoin OG that I got to learn about. Then Roger Ver and all these other guys from the early days too, and Nick Spanos. So then when I learned the third time around, like my military background and the whole, obviously I don't support drug dealing, but that's a chapter of my life. I cannot take that away. So it's not really something that I want to share, but I think it's important because it ties into why I understood Bitcoin faster than, for example, my ex-wife who has a finance degree in finance. Some of these smart people that are from the finance world can't even figure Bitcoin out. So it's just kind of blows my, and I don't have a degree. I've never been to no university. I literally have just my high school diploma and street knowledge and military. That's my background. And logistics, because that's most of the working that I've done. But the logistics aspect of it, every aspect of the previous of chapters of my life, all tied into when Bitcoin came around and I started to learn it. Not only did I learn fast, but I started to realize like I could actually do something full time in this space. And so this whole mining thing with this Bitcoin mining museum is dope to think that I created a job out of thin air that never existed before. Like, where can you do that? That's not something that anybody could just do. In Bitcoin, you can. There's a lot of jobs that have been created in Bitcoin out of thin air over the years because it's scaling. So it's dope that I'm now getting paid to do what I love. So I don't consider it a job anymore. I get to pick and choose contract jobs that I go on because besides the museum, I have an LLC where I do consulting work for mining companies. So I've done brokering with miners, like large-scale mining deals, green sites, doing assessments for mergers between two companies that want a non-biased third party to come in and assess things, or just people overseas. I have a trusted name in the space. I don't have beef with anybody. I'm a neutral person. So people have a trust level with me. Like somebody from Germany once said, "Hey, I want to buy $6 million worth of miners in Texas, but I cannot come to the U.S. because of COVID right now, but I trust you." So they paid me first class ticket, fly out to Texas and spend 3-4 hours on the site where I took a drill and opened up miners and checked the hash boards out, checked the power supplies, checked the airflow in these containers, and with my heat sink camera and my CFM fan, and just did a whole assessment and gave him my opinion. And based off of that opinion, he chose not to do the deal because there was a lot of bad issues. So him spending $5 grand for one day saved him $6 million headache. So like I do those types of jobs during the day, and that's what kind of not just feeds my family, but also I was able to dollar cost average into Bitcoin over the years with some of the funds on top of what I'm doing. So basically, this mining thing has kind of just been a hobby that turned into something real, and now it's like really real because now it's a nonprofit. I have a facility. I got 136 different machines, and it doesn't stop there because the 136 machines are not enough to fill up 30,000 square feet. We're now collaborating to do Bitcoin education. So I have a PhD professor from New York who has made the first Bitcoin blockchain course in America 2 years ago. It's a 2-year course in New York, and the first students of 100 students graduated just a few months back last year. And he got his hands tied in New York because of bureaucracy over there. So he loves what I'm doing with this nonprofit, and he's joining us as now the third director, and he's the education director. And I'm building him a classroom in the back corner, and we're going to educate. We're going to have school buses of high school kids and maybe even middle school kids coming through, where what we plan on doing is called the Orange Pill Crash Course, where 2-3 hours they spend time first learning about how the US dollar is a melting ice cube and why, and then lead into my whole museum physically of the chronological history of 17 years of mining. And then they sit down in the classroom with him, and then they have a whole Q&A and get more educated about 21 million Bitcoin, 100 million sats, who's Satoshi, and all that stuff. And then they leave with this BDC certificate in their hand that they have been orange pilled. And that way we get the next the Gen Zs of the world and the younger generation up and help with mass adoption. But even on that education side, it's not going to stop because we want to do politicians and have like a 1 or 2 day course for politicians to come through from anywhere in the country that don't know nothing about Bitcoin and want to learn, because it's difficult to educate somebody about something that doesn't exist. You cannot touch or see it, right? But except my museum is literally the only tangible part of the Bitcoin blockchain. And when you walk into a museum with 16, 17 years of history, there's no denying it at that point. You cannot sit there and tell me in my face that Bitcoin is a scam. Like, how did I just crap out 17 years worth of mining machines out of thin air? All of them look different. Like, it's impossible for you to say Bitcoin is a scam at that point. So anybody that says Bitcoin's a scam, come to the BDC Center. I'll show you how it's a scam. So there'd be the education aspect of the whole thing. And then even with the repair center on the other side of the wall, we're discussing in the future, after the museum gets up and running, doing internships for actual training technicians to learn chip level repair and all kinds of other stuff. Because like if you become a mechanic today, you have to be ASE certified at minimum. And there's no such thing that exists in America right now for something like that, for mining sites for, Mara and Riot and CleanSpark and all these large companies that have all these big mining sites all over the U.S. They're always looking for experienced technicians, and there's really nothing that exists right now to support that. So we can focus on that, and then also an event center. Because the size of it, we can handle up to 400 people, give or take. So that's where some of the bread and butter is going to come to help cover expenses because the overhead is high. Just rent alone is $25,000 a month for the place. So I need to come up with $600,000-$700,000 a year on at minimum just to cover the salaries for like the professor and the internet and the electricity bill and the rent and insurance, and I mean there's like 3-4 different insurance coverages that I got to deal with because of traffic coming in and out, and the miners themselves have to be insured, and fire insurance, and what is the other one? Officer and director insurance for the nonprofit. Like I didn't know any of this stuff until I just got into this, so it's kind of mind blowing. So then the other on the way out though from the classroom, there's like daily traffic can come in and out like yourself. You can show up with your kids and come through Monday through Friday, and I'm trying to do it free so that way anybody can come. But that all depends on the donations that we put into cold storage and stack up over the years. So that way we have some income coming in to cover expenses so we don't have to charge people that want to learn about Bitcoin, especially the youngsters. But there will be a storefront on the way out. So once you learn about Bitcoin and understand it better, on the way out, you'll be able to buy nodes, bitaxes, miners, apparel, shirts and hats and all that. So I'm talking to FOMO 21. I'm talking to Start 9. Got support from Solo Satoshi. Got support from Bitcoin trading cards. Here's a Satoshi card from S1. Here's the white paper from S1. Like these are educational cards too, you know. So we'll have Bitcoin trading cards for sale, and so it'll be a store. All the authors from all the books, like right there. I'm just got one from Natalie Brunell. She just signed it for me last week when I did a podcast with her down in Florida, in Naples. But all the authors from Bitcoin authors in the space have a bookshelf with all their books for sale, and then whatever proceeds we get, you know, percentage of it goes back to the nonprofit, and they get the rest of it. So that'll be that. So yeah, it's going to be a big deal because nothing like this exists in the world today. There's nobody that could duplicate what I've built. It's impossible, and I can say that now because I have prototypes. If somebody tries to start a Bitcoin mining museum anywhere else in the world, you got to call me to get the prototypes if you want them. You know, it's like it's point of no return. It's kind of cool.
I mean, that's so cool. And you know, when it does start, I make a bunch of these 3D prints. So please let me know when the store goes live, and I'll send you like 100 of these. You can sell them, I don't know, for $1, you know, 1,000 sats. And I also I wrote a Bitcoin children's coloring book, just, you know, selfishly for my kids, but I'll send you 50 copies of that as well. And would love, if you want to sell them or give them away, I'd love to donate however I can. And hopefully to any Bitcoiner listening, whether it's just donating you sats directly or helping out like that, I found personally, and I'm sure you would agree with this, that the Bitcoin community is so kind and so willing to give. And you know, if you're a good person in the space,
but right now I am surprised though, because the announcement got pushed out. Like, we have official endorsements from Adam Back, Luke Dash Jr., Charlie Shrem. Those are the top 3 right now. I'm waiting some responses back from others. But the first announcement on X from our account got 45,000 views in a matter of days, and through the whole 45,000 views and that whole push, we're at $300 by Square through US dollar and 0.033 Bitcoin. So there's only like 4 small transactions. From when it comes to the support from the community, from the plebs, sort of say, it's not as much as I was hoping for. I don't know. I need to get the word out more, I guess. But we do have awesome support from our senior advisor, who is an OG from 2010. His name's Bryce. And Bryce has already donated over $100,000 in 2 transactions in the last 10 days. And he's even talking about doing another one. But I'm going to show proof of work as soon as the storm is over, and the U.S. is from between here and Dallas, things are, you know, operational again on the highways. I'm going to grab that money from that first 100 grand and put it to work right away. And I'm taking a GC with me that built my house here because they're so busy in Dallas with everything. It's hard to find even, a quick help to build stuff out. So I'm taking help with me, and we're going to go straight to Lowe's. I already got my debit card from the bank for the nonprofit, and we're just going to start buying materials and paint. And I'm going to be up there on a ladder myself with a brush and a roller, and we're going to put in proof of work to get this place started. So my hope is that once we spend this initial 100 grand to build some of the separation walls in there, 10-foot walls, and some of the display cases for the miners, and paint the walls and stuff, that we show this proof of work online, and show the people that this is real. And hopefully the Jack Dorseys of the world pay attention and see that we're serious with this. And all it takes is for an early OG that is looking to just give back to the Bitcoin community with something as awesome as this historic facility, to get us to that goalpost where we're trying to get to 2 million by the end of the year, and that'll cover us into next year with overhead and building it out, and to the grand opening of an orange ribbon cutting ceremony. But my end goal is not even just this center. My end goal is to have a endowment fund built. And in this endowment fund, we have Bitcoin that's growing over the years that we don't touch. And if a whale, with thousands of Bitcoin says, here's 100 Bitcoin, like, getting to that level of Bitcoin in an endowment fund allows us to literally run the museum just off of the annual interest without touching the principal. And we never, for hundreds of years, never have to do anything for fundraising again. It'll be a one-done deal. So for that type of stuff, I'm looking to do naming rights. Like, anybody that contributes large amounts early on to help us get to these goals, I want to put cement blocks into the ground of the blockchain, where your name and the height, the Bitcoin height number, and your name or logo is engraved into the cement concrete of the floor for the life of the museum. So all the thousands of people in and out over the years will always be reminded about who built this place. So that way you don't just get a tax exempt status on your donation. You don't just get credibility on great optics to the public because you're showing that you're giving back to the community, but you have something etched in stone as being an initial contributor for the life of the museum on the blockchain floor. And the lease is over in 5 years, and we're hoping that in 5 years this endowment fund grows so big that we can go build one from the ground up that will be a forever museum without a lease. And like, they have museums in downtown Dallas that have been built from the ground up, and they are dope. Like, I went to see one while I was there just to get some motivation from other museums and some inspiration. And it's mind-blowing how the tens of millions of dollars they had coming in that then built this huge, beautiful structure. So eventually I would love to get to that point where we can build something from the ground up that will be like the epicenter of the world for Bitcoin education and Bitcoin history. Like, basically, we become the Smithsonian for Bitcoin, essentially.
I mean, that's so awesome. I love the idea of a concrete chain, someone's name etched into a stone, just like, you can etch your name in the blockchain, and,
yes,
actually a physical.
We might even connect that too. I know there's some people that are on this side of the fence, some on that side of the fence, but I don't think if we're doing, like, let's just say 10 people donate with large donations and they all get a block, 10 inscriptions on the blockchain connecting to that cemented block, I think would be kind of dope. That's not going to hurt anything if we just do 10 inscriptions.
No, 100. I'm in the same boat with you. Obviously, some stuff gets put on that spam, but who decides what is spam? That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But one of the things I wanted to go back to that I thought was such a good point you made is kind of your backstory, and I do appreciate you, sharing your whole story. And you mentioned your wife works in finance, and I bring that up because
that was my ex-wife. My current wife is ex-military like me, and she's IT.
Gotcha. Well, to your point about your ex-wife, and I saw it in my own experience, going down the rabbit hole, I swear it wasn't learning new stuff that was so challenging for me, but it was unlearning all these things that I thought I knew. And I think your project in the museum have an education thing. And one of the things that makes me most hopeful is, I work in Bitcoin full time, and the amount of Bitcoiners I see having babies. So, Bitcoin and Bitcoiners, as I mentioned to you before we started recording, they're both number go up technology. And then I have plenty of friends who, I don't want to say they're normies or they're fiat minded or whatever, but they're just not down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. And I believe because of the cost of living, I don't know many people who are not Bitcoiners that are having children because I think it's more expensive. And I think, just kind of the quote unquote programming in society has not prioritized family to put it nicely. And it gives me so much hope to see the younger generations. I mean, I'll be paying my kids in sat. If I ask my 3-year-old what's the best money, Bitcoin or fiat, she now says Bitcoin. She used to say fiat just to mess with me, but now she knows to say Bitcoin. And I think that education is so important early on because I do think there's something to be said where if you've learned something, it's like, what's that? I think it's a Mark Twain quote where it's like, it's harder to it's harder to convince someone they've been fooled than to actually fool them. And I think it kind of goes to the point when you have to unlearn something. And so that's also like the Michael Saylor quote, Bitcoin's on a need to know basis. So if we can teach the kids young, if we can teach them early, or even for politicians who have already learned certain things, to see that Bitcoin is tangible, creates jobs, it helps build out energy infrastructure. I mean, all of these positive externalities of Bitcoin mining, I think teaching that and helping people unlearn some of the misconceptions they've learned is an incredibly noble mission and very important, even though I give it a very high probability. 99.9% Bitcoin succeeds. I don't think anything's guaranteed in this world, and I think the more people we can educate, the better off we are. So I'm very glad to hear, what work you guys are doing at the Bitcoin Discovery Center.
Thanks. Well, we're not at that level yet where we got started, but this is the fundraising round. This is where I'm at, and this is a part of the process. 100 grand already in the past 10 days, I think is a great start. And once we show proof of work, then hopefully more comes in. Yeah, man. The whole space is exciting. Like yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, or the day before. I had to go to the bank, and I don't know why the tellers chose to go to lunch while everybody else is on lunch, and they go to the bank during their lunch break to do transactions. So there's a long line and less tellers. Makes no freaking sense to me. But people were pulling their checkbooks out in front of my face, and it's like I feel like throwing up inside when I see stuff like that. And I'm standing there to just get a cashier's check because somebody, they have to have fiat, so sometimes I still have to deal with doing this bank stuff. But I sometimes I feel like I'm the future walking through the present, waiting for the past to catch up with me when I'm standing in public because I see all this old school stuff still happening around me. And then it feels strange because once you learn that you have been lied to since Jekyll Island in 1913, it's like I treat everything as a lie now until you convince me it's the truth. And I've been doing better off that way than to always give people the benefit of the doubt that they're telling the truth and then to get my feelings hurt later. So and Bitcoin taught me that. Bitcoin taught me the health side too. Like I just started the carnivore diet January 2nd. I'm down 20 pounds today in 21 days. And my inflammation has gone out of my body. Bitcoin got me into owning chickens, and I have my own chicken eggs because I know what they do to chickens from the farms at the grocery store that you get the eggs from. So now I pull my own chicken eggs from my own backyard. Like Bitcoin is not just down the rabbit hole financially, but it's down the rabbit hole with branching off into many aspects of life in general. And but education is the key to all of it. And that's where hopefully we can help out with our center.
Yeah, 100%, man. That goes back to that point about the paradox. It's greed, not necessarily a positive emotion. Or at least most people, understandably don't associate greed with a positive connotation. But the more you go down that rabbit hole, the more it starts changing every aspect of your life, not just finances, but health. The way you view wealth, the relationships with your family, lowering your time preference. I think it seems, at least in my anecdotal experience, everyone I know who's gone down the rabbit hole, they become a much lower time preference person, and I think it's beautiful. And Tobias, I know we're coming up on the top of the hour here. I could listen to you speak for hours, man. It has been an absolute pleasure hearing your story, the museum you're building. So I just got 2 more questions for you. And this one, I tend to like to ask this to everyone, and I'm really curious your answer as someone who's literally memorializing Bitcoin with their museum. If you could ask Satoshi Nakamoto one question, what would it be?
That's a good question. Shouldn't have asked me that before we got on this thing, so I have time to think about it.
I'll let you think about it for a second, but I'll say the funniest answer. I asked someone that, and it wasn't in a podcast. It was just from one of my Bitcoin news articles. But they immediately just said for his private keys without missing a beat, and I died laughing. I thought that was such a funny answer.
To ask him about his private keys?
Or like for his private keys, so he could have the keys to the million or so Bitcoin.
Well, that my mind wouldn't go there because that's all still part of money, and money's, you know, behind a lot of the issues we have in this world today. But I I would probably, as a historian, or I actually call me and the other two guys that do this, we call ourselves hash historians, not historians. So I came up with that new
I
title.
like that.
So as a hash historian, I would probably I would want to know why 21 million, why he chose 21 million as the supply cap, and if he would donate his laptop to the museum.
Man, that would be a cool artifact, wouldn't it? That's
That
his
would be
Toshi laptop.
insane. So it's actually I'm hoping that I can talk to his wife and get something physical from him to put in our museum. And there's a section on the left side of the wall that I'm going to call the Pioneer Wall because I'm going to pay homage to the early OGs that contributed to the space, like Hal Finney and Adam Back and Luke and all these other guys. So I'm planning on putting these large, like 100-inch TV screens on the wall, uh, portrait upright, and have their bio with their photo just circulating through. And that also be a cool way for a big contributor that comes in. Let's just say it's Riot Blockchain, and we take their logo, and between Hal showing up and Adam showing up, the logo shows up for whoever helped contribute. So, but underneath the TV screens, I still want to do something similar to the Hard Rock Cafe, where you go in there and you see Janet Jackson's jacket, or Michael Jackson's microphone, or whatever. Have something from Hal Finney that he actually had during his time alive to have in a display case before underneath the screen with his face on it. I think that would be pretty dope to kind of start setting. And the other thing is the event center stuff. Real quick, if you go to a Bitcoin conference and fall in love with another Bitcoin chick, and y'all want to get married, you can book the whole BDC center on a Saturday and be surrounded by the history of Bitcoin and have a Bitcoin themed wedding. Uh, Coinbase is building their headquarters in Dallas, from what I understand. They can have their Christmas party with all their employees in there. Michael Saylor can have his quarterly C-suite meetings in there, or Orange Pill other CEOs, because it's easier for him to talk about stuff when there's things physically around you to see. If you want to orange pill other CEOs from other companies, and the conferences that come through and they want to have a whale cocktail party in the evening, or use the place for an event center some way for a side event for these big conferences, that's what we're going to be there too for. So I'm going to be building display cases that have wheels that you can move around. So if there is a wedding, we move the miners around to where we accommodate the size of the wedding, and then when the wedding's done, we put all the museum pieces back. So it'll be, versatile.
Yeah, no Bitcoin meetups, man. I say I used to live up in
That too.
Boston, and the mass adoption meetup up there just helped solidify that experience. I mean, and my wife was thankful because I finally had a group of people I could speak to about with Bitcoin, and I mean, she's into it, but she's not like deep down the rabbit hole like I am. So, if you're Bitcoin curious or you're kind of on the fence, I couldn't recommend enough, going to a Bitcoin meetup in person, because, man, it just makes such a world of difference getting to meet other Bitcoiners. I mean, Zoom's great, connecting online is great, but when you actually meet them face to face in person,
100%.
there's something really special about that.
Yeah.
Well, Tobias, like I said, man, I want to be respectful of your time. It has been a
All
pleasure
right.
chatting. I really appreciate you coming on. My final question is, I'm going to pop that QR code up you sent me, so if anyone wants to make donations, I'll edit that in. So for anyone who wants to donate, highly encourage you to go there and do so. But is there anything I haven't asked you, or any other places you might want to point people who are curious that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Bitcoindiscoverycenter.com is the website. donation buttons right there on the front, and you can go through the menu, see the miners on the museum side. You can see previous videos of displays from conferences. You can see the team and everybody on the team. I think I have close to 10 advisors that are all OGs from the very early days that are a part of this. Some are even from other parts of the world. But yeah, just would love to get the support from the community. If you guys are willing to sacrifice even just a Chick-fil-A meal for $20, any little bit helps, because that $20, that's 3 rollers and 2 brushes right there for us to start painting, you know? So I appreciate any little support. For any of the OGs out there, we have donations at bitcoindiscoverycenter.com or info@bitcoindiscoverycenter.com to reach out. And it's preferred, like we just got this large donation for the 100 grand. It was 25 grand and then 75 grand in wire transfers instead of going through Square, because you know they take 2.6 or 2.9%. So when you're dealing with large transactions like that, we prefer to just have a straight wire transfer to our bank account for the nonprofit. So yeah, if any OG wants to contribute out there, then be naming rights. Like I said earlier, there's different ways of skinning the cat for naming rights. But yeah, that's about it. And I'm gonna show proof of work. Follow us on X. You can look up Bitcoin Discovery Center. We should pop up with a name, but the name is BTC Mining Museum. It's still the old one. I'm trying to get it changed, but X is giving me a hard time with that right now. But hopefully I'll get a newer name that matches the Bitcoin Discovery Center soon.
Perfect. I'm going to put links to all that below for the listener. If you want to look at any of that stuff, there should be links below. And Tobias, thank you for your time. And anyone who tuned into yours, thank you for yours.
Thank you.
Money, time. Brought your life force and energy that my value trained for a dime. You clock in, clock out, trade your pose for a tech. Call it building a life, while life leaves through your neck. Fine like game, there's a winner. Infinite game, there's no end. When you play to beat the others, when you play to transcend. The brain gets loud, gets cool, screaming you're behind, and the rhythm answers right, and the static leaves your mind. Call it God, call it half, call it cold, running beat. Something roots you into with distance and then make you cheap. So the grind can keep grinding, the clock can keep its case. I'm not here to suffer through it, I'm here to run my race. Not with teeth clenched tight, not with fear in my chest. Just a grin and a rhythm, giving the world what is right. The dimes in a come overboard. Time's gonna pass either way. Might as well make it music. Yeah, might as well make it play. Money, yeah. Money. 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 Yeah. Money. Time. One's your life force and then other you trade for a dime. You clock in, clock out, trade your post for a check. Call the build in a life while life leaves doing Mac. Finite game, there's a winner. You finna gang, there's no end. One you play to beat the others, one you play to transcend. But the brain gets loud, gets crows screaming your behind. Stay behind, then a rhythm man subscribe. And a static leaves your mind. Call it God, call it math, call it code, writing beat. So the road you into existence and didn't make you cheat. So the rock can keep grinding, the block can keep its space. I'm not here to suffer through it, I'm here to run my race. Now with teeth clenched tight, not with fear in my chest. Just a grin in the rhythm, giving the world what is right. The time's gonna come, or it won't. The time's gonna pass either way. Might as well make it music. Might as well make it play.